Welcome to the Heart of Money podcast, where we discuss the personal and emotional elements of money and the impact that money has on every area of your life. I'm Austin Black, a personal finance coach that helps couples overcome their fear and frustration of financial management so they can take complete control of their money. What started as a desire to learn the fundamentals of money management has turned into a passion for helping couples work together to achieve financial success and strengthen their relationship with each other. Whether you're looking for the best strategies to manage your money as a couple, or you're tired of struggling to gain traction and want to overcome the fear and frustration associated with finances, I'm here to help, and this show is for you. Ready to learn more? Then let's talk about the heart of money. Hey folks, most people believe that in order to do anything successful with money, you either have to make a lot of it or spend as little of it as possible. And yeah, both of those are helpful, but they are not the key to becoming financially secure and independent. But there is a secret that I'm going to teach you of how to become debt-free and have financial security without the need for a huge income or restrictive lifestyle. I'm going to walk you through these strategies in my upcoming masterclass, the Financial Freedom Blueprint, which I'm hosting live once a month, and I want to personally invite you to join me in the next class. You can find out more details and sign up at freedommoneycoach.com/training. In this class, I'm going to teach you how to get on the same page with your spouse, how to take control of your money, and how to manage your behavior to accomplish your financial goals for the rest of your life. So head on over to freedommoneycoach.com/training, sign up, and join me on my next live masterclass. I look forward to seeing you next month. Hey folks, welcome back to the Heart of Money, episode 98. We're getting close to 100. We're almost there. It's exciting. I am your host, Austin Black, joined by not only my splendidly entertaining and magically creative co-host, Bob Wessler, ... but also our wives, Laura and Kate. So it's going to be a fun night. And Bob, do you have any comments for my introduction? Because you always do.
I think for this episode, I should say as little as possible.
To me or your wife?
Yes.
I hear it all anyway,
Yeah.
So what does it matter?
It's either she hears it now or she hears it next week and comes and hits me
That's
over
true,
the head,
yeah.
So.
Yeah, at least at this rate, if you say something wrong and she corrects you, you can still try to defend yourself on air.
It's called immediate feedback.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes.
At least she still listens.
Right. Yeah, she stopped like 20 episodes ago.
Was that because
I
of
have
you or
enough
me?
noise and chaos that when it's quiet, I don't need to hear you in my ear more.
And we're really setting the stage for this one, aren't we?
This is why we only talk so many times a month. So
Again, to me or her?
yes, no, you. She doesn't listen anyway, so only when it's recorded, and then she goes, "You said what?" Yes, I did.
So normally Bob and I, banter back and forth and give each other a hard time for about the first 5 minutes, but this time we actually, have people that we can make fun of that's not each other. So I'm kind of enjoying the way that we're starting this, but I also realize that we probably need to get down to business at some point. So Bob, I have been like scaring you with nearly every topic we talked about in the last 3 months. Are you feeling safe tonight?
At this distance, not really, but we'll see how it goes.
Do we need to break into separate recording studios for you and Kate?
Maybe. I just got to figure out where I can go to do that. So,
Okay.
no, I'm good. I'm good for now. I mean, what's our safe sign? Do we? Yeah.
And for those of you not watching on YouTube, Bob just made a funny face.
That's my face. I'm sorry.
He can't help it. He can't help it, Austin. It's just there.
Oh, the joys of being married with two amazing women. Not the same women, but, each are married to two amazing women. Y'all know what I mean here. And the fun that we get to have talking about money, because the beauty of this whole marriage and money concept is we all mess up, and yet we all learn how to do it, and we all do it together. So tonight we're going to have a little flashback episode of what we have done, good and bad, when it comes to budgeting with our spouse. And I know many episodes ago, Bob, you and I got the ladies on here and we talked about how we budget with our spouse, and just compare the different strategies, the different concepts, approaches, and everything else. But tonight we're just going to tell some stories because we've both, I think, learned a lot. We've made a lot of mistakes. We've had some great successes, and I think true to form of how we like to bring other guests into the show, it's all about the story and the sincerity that they have. And I think that's what we get to do tonight, is be open and honest with each other, with our audience, around what we have done with our spouse individually to be successful budgeting as a couple, and what we learned, the mistakes that we made, and maybe other folks can learn from those or relate to them, and we can kind of work through that together. So that's kind of the plan for tonight's show, folks. Bob, do you and Kate want to kick us off with your stories and your experience?
Stories and experience. Well, I think since the last time that we sat down, we've changed how we budgeted. I don't know that we've really changed. We've changed part of it, but we are trying to do more of a budgeting together to where we're working towards one account. Mm-hmm. It has taken a greater part of a year. I don't know. We sat down a couple of times and have done a few reworks. Have had a few changes, but are still operating on 2 accounts. Again, with the goal of getting to 1. And speaking for Kate, she'd say that I'm not doing it fast enough. And I'm saying I'm trying. And I think, as we've talked about before, the biggest thing has been communication. And the frustrating pieces of trying to have 2 different perspectives working towards one budget, even though the budgeting piece is not hard, it's the accounting piece that goes with it. And like we said, you miss a receipt and no, it's not for bubble gum, it's for 3 tanks of gas, or whatever it is.
You use that much gas in a month?
But I put it in the app. I put it in the budgeting app. So I don't, sometimes the machine doesn't give you a receipt.
Yeah,
I know. That's what he says.
The other side of the company that we used to work for, that, I'm not going to go any further into that part, but they don't always print out the receipts. And so sometimes we don't get the receipts or don't communicate. And that was fun last week. Because my parents used to do the same thing. At least my dad used to do it, where he'd go get money out of an ATM, because we used to have that ATM in the basement. And, he wouldn't tell my mom. And then when she was the one doing the accounting, and that 20 or 120 or 200 or whatever it was, didn't know that came out. Oops. So I'm getting to replay some of that here again, and trying to work through those things. And again, communication, just like real estate, only
not.
Yeah.
I know you were headed and you weren't going to get there.
Only because I repeated it 3 times. Come on.
So what do you, and I know this is a little different because you have, changed your methodology and approach to things, but probably for a lot of people out there, budgeting separately, or at least managing separately, is still kind of a common occurrence. What were some of the successes that you guys had from doing it, the way that you've done it for the last 8-9 years? What were some of the things that really just worked well for you in budgeting? Even though you were doing it separately, you were still budgeting as a couple, from the standpoint of you're both budgeting the money within, your household. What were some of the successes that you guys experienced by both of you being involved in that process?
I didn't overspend money from her account and only on my account, so I didn't have to worry about it. At least overdrawing her as it went. So,
right.
What would you say? Well, I think we've gotten better at communication along those lines of, who's spending what on where. So we've gotten better at talking through how much we're spending, what we're spending it on, where we need to spend less or more, and kind of figuring out all the budget categories. You know, sometimes he says his unaccounted purchases. I know you've heard all about them.
Mm-hmm.
But sometimes I think those need to go into the house fund. Like, that was house stuff. Doesn't go on your unaccounted purchases. So kind of talking through that and figuring out those things has been a success for us. So
It's the little things that make the biggest difference, it seems like.
yeah.
Yeah, and it's I think it's interesting for us because I don't feel like we have ever been experts at budgeting as a couple, but I feel like we have been able to really improve year over year, you know, with how we're doing things. And it's never perfect by any means, but I'm just thinking back to, you know, one of the very first budget meetings that we had when we first married there. And I've told the story dozens of times. It all made sense to me. Did not make sense to you.
Because you made it.
Exactly. So everything all goes back to the communication piece. You know, we've talked about 1,000 times. We'll talk about 10,000 more. And our fault within that was the communication. The budget itself made perfect sense, but the way that we communicated around how to understand the budget was really lacking. So
I wasn't understanding fast enough for you.
Exactly.
Was the problem.
Yeah.
I was gonna say,
I was supposed to just automatically say everything looks great. Good job, honey.
Yeah. I'm still
Give
not
you that pat on the
understanding
back.
fast enough.
Yeah. And then you fast forward to, you know, 9 years later, and it's almost like we understand what each other needs from the budget, I think. And we understand, you know, we've done it together every single month for our entire marriage. And there's almost like this unspoken understanding of, okay, this is what we're doing with the numbers. This is what we mean by the categories. This is why we are allocating money here, not allocating money there, et cetera, et cetera. And correct me if I'm wrong here, but I feel like just over time, because we have stayed committed to budgeting every single month and reviewing that and fine tuning that we almost just have that where we don't even really have to go over the entire thing because we just know how it's supposed to work.
Yeah, I mean, we've had in the past the category it should go under disagreements or things just like you guys have had. You know, we've had I spent cash and didn't get a receipt, and now it's 2 weeks later, and where did I spend that cash and how much was it?
Mm-hmm.
Challenges that still pop up because that's just life. But I feel like especially this last 6 months or so, probably, we've started to take the different approach instead of pulling up the budget and going line by line, just what is different, because there's so many things that month to month never change. So what's different? What are the things we really need to talk about? Let's maybe start to think about what's coming up that maybe we don't have to talk about right now, but let's get it captured and we've got it to go back to later whenever it is the time to actually put that in the budget. So we fine-tuned that process and gotten more communication that's actually documented instead of having to remember. There are still some things that I think you have to tell me. We've already talked about that last month and the month before. Don't you remember? But
For the past 6 months.
Yes.
And the amount doesn't change.
Yes. But there's fewer of those things.
Right.
We have those conversations too still.
And this last month we had a good change as far as what was going where, and that was one of the conversations where like, okay, what's different about this month and where can we reallocate? And I think that worked really well. It was enough of a shift that we could move stuff around for a better liking to what we wanted. But I think that, again, we'll have another conversation next month and how things change and how they keep moving around. And A lot of them,
Yeah.
for me at least, have been categories that don't change. And then other ones are ones that change significantly in some cases.
Well, I think to piggyback off of her comment on the latest change that we've done, there was a time within about the last 2 years where the budget meetings almost became overwhelming because we were literally spending 2.5 to 3 hours a month just scouring the budget, going through every single item, going through every single dollar amount.
Which included interruptions from kids
It did.
constantly.
Of course.
But because we were doing so much, it made it where we were just so ready to be done with even talking about it that it wasn't very productive.
Well, we couldn't get to the out of normal
Mhm.
things or the planning for the future things. It was,
And-
is this number in this category right for this month?
And what I kind of discovered was because I put the budget together every month, the specific numbers are matter to me, and I want to be sure that I get every single category correct. But we began to realize that she doesn't care about every single category. She cares about the big picture. She cares about what's different, where we need to adjust. She doesn't care that the birthday fund is the same amount of money for the past 8 months. That just doesn't matter. So I had to adjust my thinking on how we were having those meetings and how I was communicating the budget to her, because I was from the standpoint of I want to make sure that all the boxes are checked and I have her buy-in or her input if we need to correct anything. But she gets overwhelmed with the complexity and the length of everything. So I don't need to lay that on her to confirm what I already know should be the right numbers. And finally kind of grasping that, because we had a couple of meetings where we were done. We were tired of talking about it. It was getting to be more of an argument than a review. And that's when we started realizing, hey, this in-depth look at it doesn't benefit, actually causes more conflict, honestly, because it's of where we were. So responding to her limited, which didn't used to be that way, years ago, it would have been, okay, what's going on? Let's make sure this is all covered, all right, all the way it should be. Now, not so much that way. So adjusting to her perception and understanding and adjusting to my confidence in where things need to be has really helped us just mesh better. And the meetings are not like, oh my gosh, how long is this going to take? It's okay, we're good, let's move on type of deal.
Well, and you've also done a better job of letting me know how things are going throughout the month. Instead of before, we would start off our monthly budget meeting for September, going over everything in August and how it actually ended up. And if we were over and had to rob from here to cover there, or if we went under and could shift or pull forward to the next month, we don't really have to have that conversation because you're keeping me updated as we go.
That makes a huge difference. So we've been using the app that we can both see. So now we're not spending as long of a period like you guys, so I can get in there and flip through it, if I need a 5-minute lunch break or whatever, after he's entered some of his stuff. And, he still keeps all of his spreadsheets because he still needs to have all of his spreadsheets, and that's fine,
Right.
But I don't understand them. But when he enters it into the app, I can see, we did all these categories and, they're all green or whatever. And it helps us to not have those long discussions about it.
Yeah.
Our discussions tend to be about 20 minutes because that's as long as she can stand me.
Oh,
Well, and even just the length of time was becoming a problem for us because he was like, I need you to sit down and take the time and focus on this. And I'm like, I have 3 little girls that constantly need me. I mean, at that point in time, Lainey was what?
Just a few months old.
Yeah, not very old. And so very needy. And I'm like, I don't have the time. I want to, but I'm tired by the time that we get a chance.
Well, it takes us about 3 or 4 times to say, hey, we need to do this. Hey, we need to do this. And both of us are like, okay. but then actually getting the chance to sit down.
Yeah.
And then in some cases, it becomes a knockdown drag out just because of the way I do things compared to the way she does them.
Yeah.
And how we use the app versus how I record and technology and, being from different generations. So
we're not from different generations. Goodness sake.
You're not that old, Bob.
He has lost his hair, though.
That was 20 years ago.
Yeah, that's been gone a long time.
Yeah.
No hair, same shoes, old shirt.
Shut it. My pandemic polo. No comments. It's when I only had to wear a shirt once a week for meetings, and so that's the one I have on today.
So are you is it a no pant Friday?
Oh, it's another gym short day.
He had to double check that. Did you see that?
I took the time to figure out how I wanted to respond to that because I only wear pants when I leave the house. Otherwise, they are gym shorts. So, yes, shorts. I wear shorts. Austin, mind out of the gutter.
Carry on.
Well, to get back on the track that we're on and taking the time for doing budget meetings, something that we have also started to do, and it hasn't been perfect through no fault of my own.
I believe that.
We've tried to schedule where the first Friday evening of each month is when we're going to do our budget meeting. Sometimes it's not ready yet and we have to adjust, and then it becomes harder. And we get to like this month where, was it Sunday that we finally looked at it? So like the 15th before we actually looked at it for the month. But that's been our goal. And I'd say at least 2/3 of the month, we've been able to actually hit it on that Friday evening.
That's more than 2/3.
There's been at least the last couple that we've missed. And we haven't started doing it that many months ago.
Probably 75% anyway.
Okay. If you want to get
Large
that
difference there.
nitpicky.
I do. We got to have a straight record.
He makes this budget. Get along or pay the price. Jeez.
So, Bob,
Have you recovered?
No. I'll put you on the stand, and then you can question me. What's been the biggest mistake you've made in budgeting?
Wow. Yeah, you did put me on the spot with that one.
With Kate, I should say. In this context
you should have reversed it and asked what I've done right. That might have been easier to answer.
The shorter answer?
Yeah.
He's trying to think of which mistake he wants to share.
Well, and mine doesn't, from what I've put in and from what I've done for years, doesn't fluctuate. And kind of like Laura made the comment about, robbing from here to put it there. I just do that automatically. And so where I think the two of you have made the comment that understanding what that budget looks like and how Austin makes it, and this is, catch up, Laura. He's been doing this long enough that you should know how to do this. You should know how this works. And I have a way of doing it in my head, and Kate's done it her way for so long that putting the two together, and really it goes back to the communication and how we communicate different pieces, or me being able to cheat the budget and move stuff to the next month, because she loves when I do that.
No, I sure don't. I don't understand. You just do it.
Where'd Bob go? I lost him there.
You just do it the way we agreed to, and then that's it. But yeah, he likes to rearrange things.
I'm an accountant. I massage things. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm an auditor. I know how to massage things.
I call myself the budget manipulator.
Mm-hmm. And I'm like, no, you just stop spending after that.
Yeah. There's my mistake right there. I'll let you decipher which one that was, but yes.
So communication, location. I got it.
Yeah.
Okay. Kate, what's been your biggest mistake?
I'm out of hitting.
I'm still nervous about this.
He must be very nervous about this. Not bringing back all of the receipts, I guess, is my biggest mistake, according to Bob.
Flashbacks.
And for those of you watching on the actual audio, Bob is like a combination of wincing and celebration at the same time.
How do you watch on audio?
Exactly.
Laura, it's a good thing you're here. Austin would have such a hard time continuing this on by himself.
It's better than listening on YouTube. It's watching the podcast. You know, it's exactly.
He knew what he meant.
Yeah, exactly.
So part of that is assuming that he was getting the information that I was putting into the app. And so there again, the communication part,
Mm-hmm.
and just making sure that each of us has what we need out of the budget, out of the information. And if he would just do it my way, it would be easier. And I know he feels the same way. If I would just do it his way,
Mm-hmm.
it would be easier. So trying to combine those is probably one of our biggest. I think probably we need to just say, okay, we can't both do it the same way we've always done it, and we just need to do something new.
Yeah.
So I'm doing both and she doesn't understand T-charts.
I do understand T-charts.
Understand what?
I worked in accounting for a long time. I understand that.
T-charts?
Yeah. It's accounting
Debits and
issue.
credits.
Okay.
It's a check register, basically.
They still make those
A
things?
check register, yeah.
He still goes and checks off everything that he does. I just look at my card and I know how much money I have spent, and it's already in the budget, so I don't have to go back and check it off because I know how much I spent.
And
It's
then
the same amount.
I look at what's there and go, did Kate spend this or is this a fraudulent transaction?
Da, da, da.
So I just look at the app and it should tell me everything, right?
It should.
Uncle Dave. Anyway. Oh, you get to see
I
him in a
think
month,
that's a
don't you?
sensitive area.
So yes, I have used the app for her peace of mind, and then she gives me a piece of her mind.
And then you have a piece of your mind.
Yeah, kind of like that, Silence of the Lambs thing. Anyway, it's why there's no hair up here.
So I thought you were getting less and less on the sides too.
Yeah, I cut it yesterday. Thanks.
Okay.
It was getting shaggy. I hadn't cut it in a week. I know my barber so personally. So, yes, being able to keep my check register electronically through Excel and reconciling, and then having these out of balance transactions going, I didn't see those, which, actuality, it's not a big deal, but it's the surprise factor that I didn't know this money was spent, or I didn't know about these transactions. And when I'm doing that on my own, I can forgive myself.
Mm-hmm.
But
It's different when it's me.
yeah,
Mm-hmm. Yep. I know there's been a few times that Laura has either garage sailing or she will know someone who has a lot of used kids' clothes that she can get at a really, really good price. And again, we've learned how to communicate about this the more we've been married. But early on, there was a couple times where she would go and I knew that she was gonna be looking at the clothes and that she was probably gonna be buying the clothes.
When Butler's citywide garage sale is every year. What month
so
it is.
what I'm thinking about is a couple of times where people from back around your home had some clothes. I knew she was going to look at them. I knew she was going to buy them. I didn't know how much she spent until she had already bought them. And she got a really, really good deal on them. I mean, not going to lie, the price per item was very, very affordable. But I was not prepared when she said how much she actually spent for that to be how much it was. So I had this instinctive reaction of, ooh, didn't know you were going to do that. We had agreed upon her doing that, but I didn't
know it was going to be that
I didn't
dollar
know to
amount.
what level it was going to entail. And then we've kind of experienced that too a little bit, through the garage selling of, $50, $60, $70 of clothes, which, isn't a lot in the big scheme of things, and especially as many clothes as we're able to get our hands on. But it took me a few times of her doing that to get accustomed to, okay, it's going to be about this much. And we need to prepare for that and plan for that, because otherwise.
You tried at one point to give me a set dollar amount, and then I would have to be done at city. I was like, no, I'm going to get what works, because if I were to go buy these clothes at the store, I would spend way more than that.
So I've had to come around to the understanding of it's a lot of money to me, but we have both agreed that it's a good deal, and she's a very prudent and wise shopper. So although I don't like the amount of money that's spent in that area, I support that purchase. But yeah, it's one of those things where the first time I was like, what just happened? I wasn't ready for that.
Yeah, you wouldn't like if she actually went out and purchased those clothes,
right?
Versus where she got them, and that
exactly,
I would get a very small fraction of the number of items
yes.
for that same dollar amount.
Yes,
and I think with us, where we have had the separate budgeting for so long, a lot of that Kate has done, where she's accounted for certain categories. And I don't worry about it. I mean, she could spend $70. She could spend $140. She could spend $10. I don't need to know, because I trust her that what she's going to spend is within what she has allotted for herself. And I'm not coming in saying, nope, it's going to cost you $140. No, we can spend $120 and make it fit into $120, or, forego that other $20. It's going to cost you $200 if you buy it elsewhere. So a lot of ours, we have the set price things or set cost categories. And then a lot of the other categories have been, well, I trust her judgment and I'm not even going to worry about it. Where again, my unaccounted has really been the issue. And luckily we've had some extra money in the last few months to where I can cover other things, because the summer has been a fun one for us.
Yeah,
and it continues to be. So, it's just been good that we've had the additional, and we've had the emergency savings, and learning from other aspects as we've gone along for the last few months.
We kind of do the same thing that you do, Laura, though, is get a bunch of clothes all at once. But we're not spending that money every month, throughout the year. Yep. And so in my mind, I always think, well, if I rationed this out as, $20 a month or whatever all through the year, it's not as big of a, oh my God moment, So
I tell them too, a lot of what I get at garage sales is for our oldest, and then it's hand-me-downs. So I'm like, this is going to be spread over 3 kids.
Right.
Depreciation cost, right, Bob?
The cost per wear on those is very minimal.
Right.
Austin knows all about this with his shoes. So,
right?
Laura, if you would just buy him a pair of shoes the next time, I'm sure it'll take care of all of these misunderstandings.
I'll look for his size next time.
They'll last me 10 years.
Yeah, size 14. So,
and a half.
3/4.
So, Bob, are you going to throw me under the bus?
I just did.
Are you going to put me in the hot seat?
Oh, okay. Your biggest mistake. And then I'll let Laura comment on if she agrees or if there's one that's
she would, even larger. If you didn't let her. Just be honest.
Yeah.
So my biggest mistake, I think, is expecting her to understand where I am with the numbers, and not having the patience to help her get there if she doesn't understand. And that's something that I've always dealt with, especially in making the budget. It all makes sense to me. And when there's questions, it's either,
You have funny math.
well, sometimes I do, yeah. When there's questions, it's either, why is it like this, or does it need to be different? It's kind of the two things that always, come to mind. So there's always a little bit of frustration on my end that she doesn't immediately understand how those numbers work. But then I have to realize that she looks at money, differently, as far as, and that's not that the math is different, but just the way that she analyzes and decides, okay, well, is this the right amount or not, is sometimes different. So that's been something I have fallen short in multiple times. Is, I present it to her and I want a yes or no. I don't want 50 questions, but for her to be able to give a yes or no, there sometimes needs to be 20 or 30 questions for sure, just so she can fully be on the same page. And if we're not on the same page, we can get to the same page, by making adjustments. So I think that's probably the biggest thing that I have personally, struggled with and made mistakes on.
So those 20 or 30 questions, how many of those made you go back and say, oh yeah, I didn't think of that?
Oh, probably half of them anyway.
Okay. Laura, when you say funny math, is that new math, or does his math just not work?
Oh, he just has his funny ways of spreading it out over months or different things to, like, well, this is going to be due in this month and we're going to start setting it back, and I'm going to do this much this month and a different amount the next month, instead of just making it an equal number every month.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that is funny. Oh, did I say the quiet part out loud? Sorry.
I say that out loud.
Where, I've talked about just having buckets, and my buckets don't change, and sometimes my buckets don't correlate well to what actually needs to be spent, and that's where I get into the robbing piece. So, Laura, would you say that his biggest mistake, you'd agree with his biggest mistake, or is there one much, much bigger, more significant that he won't admit to?
No, I think he's got it. Just the expectation sometimes that I'm able to read his mind and know his thought process, and be on board and in agreement with that immediately.
Well, she says my mind is pretty simple, so I'm not sure why that's so hard.
Well, my question is, have you gone over it in your head so many times that you thought you've had the conversation?
I don't have that problem, but what I run into is I've gone over my head so it all makes sense to me, and I don't want to slow down to have her get to the same point.
On any question is a challenge to this thing that you've thought about forever.
Yeah, it all makes sense to me. What's wrong?
We might have talked about this on a previous episode, but there was a conversation about a plan to buy a truck.
Mm-hmm. I think I remember that one.
Mm-hmm. We all remember that. And I have gotten a little bit better at, I think where I have gotten better at is asking my own questions to understand what she doesn't understand about it. Because it makes perfect sense to me. But if she has obvious hesitation and resistance to it, I try to ask more questions so I can understand where is the gaps that I need to walk her through, or is what she's saying actually making sense, and what I thought was right, needs to be adjusted. So I've tried to be very, very conscientious around not just taking her question as a question, but actually seeking to understand why she is asking that, so I can help her understand where I am coming from, and hopefully either way, whether I need to adjust or she just needs more time, we can find that common ground of agreement.
Well, and there's also some things too that you maybe haven't strived to, it has to all be perfect, and really spend the time thinking through it all. And you'll just ask me, what do you think here? What do we need here? What's coming up? and we work it together and not just, all right, here's my stamp of approval. Let's move on.
Being involved in the process does help me understand where he's coming from sometimes. But again, sometimes he doesn't take the time to involve me in the process. He goes through and thinks through what he wants to do with it. And then he's like, oh, here's what we're going to do. And I'm like, okay, I don't know how we got there.
Or I ask her,
and here's these 5 things.
yeah, it's like, so here's what I've thought about, and I would like to do this, this, and this. And her opinion is I've already done it. And that has been a strong argument multiple times, to where I have gone from I'm going to do this, this, and this, and getting that stamp of approval, to really being in a position of I would like to do this, this, and this, and not waiting for the stamp of approval as much as I'm like, what are your thoughts on this? It still doesn't come across that way based on the conversations.
We're trying, though. We're getting better every time.
You're like 7 years ahead of us at this point in those conversations. So we might get there.
We started budgeting 9 years ago, so that's pretty good.
Yeah. We're on year 2. So, but we still have 2 separate accounts. So, well, that's not counting all the savings accounts, and that drives her nuts. So
it does.
I guess at this point, Kate, I will take over the show and ask you what my biggest issue has been, and then what you think yours has been.
Well, I know what you would say my biggest issue is, or one of my biggest issues is I keep too much money in my checking account. I know. It drives you crazy. I'm sorry.
Especially with high interest rates. I think this actually was a conversation that Austin and I had.
I know, and I heard you. I did.
That's why she knew that's what you would say.
It is. I know. But it gives me the peace of mind after, having a birthday for my oldest daughter when I was married to my previous husband, and I didn't have the money to buy a $10 bike at a yard sale and a package of cupcakes, like cupcake mix, not even like the store-bought ones, So to me, that's it makes Kate secure issue. And I know it drives you crazy. So I'm going to move some of it. I promise.
And it's not under the mattress.
It's not under the mattress.
And rates are going down. So it really doesn't matter because you're not going to get as much. But anyway, I digress.
It'll be better than if I leave it there.
I had to pick my jaw up off the floor. Seriously. I think it dislocated, and like the wolf thing from the cartoons where, like you have how much? You're doing it 0.05. Yeah. So, yeah. And a lot of
he's still picking it up too.
Well, it was one of those one and done. Like, I can't believe you did that. And, but that's a peace of mind thing. And it's very much the reason, in my opinion, that we've done the app, and that I'm entering the stuff on the app so she can see where we are big picture, and not just having the once a month interaction where, well, I overspend on this category and I always overspend on this category, and these are all in line like they should be because I expect them to be, and they don't move. But on the ones that don't, they're way out of line. But she can see that closer to real time within the month, and there's more accountability to it in that case. And then we've been able to say, well, this is, maybe we need to move some money here, move some money there, and figure how to work the two together. My biggest mistake is ongoing, will continue to be.
I think it's just a peace of mind thing for you too. But we're doing something different than what we were doing, but you're still doing your stuff the same. Like, instead of just, okay, we're drawing a line in the sand and doing it different. I think that's...
Yeah, it's not going to happen.
I know.
Yeah. I'm like, I'm not going to trust the app. And no, I'm not giving the app permission
That's fine. I said you didn't have to.
to get into my accounts. That's what I deal with on a daily basis, like with Plaid and whatever else. No, not happening. Again, I think that's a generational thing, that there's some that they just want that automatically into their phone and where they're tracking stuff. And that's my big thing working at a bank is if people look at their phone and, oh, I have this much, but I'm not accounting for the $300 purchase I had or whatever transaction that's going through. I'm not going to say that they wrote a check because they sure as heck didn't write a check.
They forgot all their Klarna payments.
Yeah. Or their Affirm or whoever else.
Whatever it is.
Mm-hmm.
Their Planet Fitness. I'm not going to go into details on those, but that's where I see a lot of accounts, kind of like the old Redbox deal, that if you didn't return your DVD, they'd start charging you $1 a day. And Austin, as we've talked about, if you don't have $6 in your account and you kept it for a week, you're now getting dinged $36 on day 7.
Right.
So yeah, I input everything into the app for her peace of mind, but I keep my stuff organized to where I know where it is, what it is, how it's working. And I probably still do some robbing Peter and Paul. But when we lost the receipts or didn't have the receipts last week, regardless of whose fault it was, her comment was, well, just look it up in the app. I'm like, oh, so now I've got to go back to the app and pull out the information rather than just putting information into the app. I go, this is going to drive me nuts. Mm-hmm. I'm like, I can't see the app that way, or I can't see it on the computer screen that way to be able to tell the transactions. I just enter the transactions, and when we get close to 0, I know that I'm done based on my categories, or I can see that I'm -100, -200, whatever it is, and where that needs to change next month. So yeah, that has been the difficult part for me, is getting to the app, using the app, and what level of involvement there is with it. And do I just trust an app to do everything? And I'm not comfortable with that. Austin, your take on an app versus not T-charts, abacus and crayon?
Let's see. So our entire budget is app based, linked to our checking accounts. But I have to have every single receipt to compare to what the app says, or I don't trust what the app says. I want to make sure, okay, I'm not missing anything here. Because even if the app says, where the expense was, I don't want to be able to see the itemization or where it was spent, all those details to make sure that it is allocated correctly.
Because Walmart might be part grocery and part household.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't look at just the bank account balance. I look at, what the budget in the app says, but then I do expect that every transaction has a physical paper record, for me to reference, or just trust that, especially with the cash transactions, that I haven't forgotten anything. Cause that's where we get into trouble more often than not. Like she said, you don't get a receipt for every cash purchase, and you do enough of those in a row, you're going to forget some of them. So that's been my biggest.
And it's usually you.
Yeah. That's been my biggest hiccup is, okay, I had, $100 and now I've only got 30, but $40 of that is all I have allocated. So where did the other $30 go? And honestly, sometimes I've had to just, reconcile it and say, it cost me somewhere, I just don't know where, type of scenario. But that's kind of how we have approached the whole thing of combining all the records, making it automated as much as we can, but still having to pulse on what's going on.
And whereas I, in the past or currently, I use cash pretty sparingly, to where Kate can just pull out cash and have it on her. I'm one that, because of my previous experience, I didn't carry cash. And if I do get cash, it's, okay, I need this much for this. And then that's what it's logged as. Whether that was $100 and it all went to that or not, that's what it is counted as. Unless there's some movement in there. But in most cases, I don't carry enough that it's of significance to track other than a one-time expense.
And go ahead.
I was to say, like, I try to use the card as much as possible because there is at least some sort of a record. Even if you lose the receipt, you'll see it on the bank statement. I think you're more willing to, for a small purchase, drink at a gas station or whatever, pay with cash. And then that's where it kind of gets lost at times or forgotten.
It really just depends upon my mood.
Well, that too.
Because I used to have a policy of anything under $10 I could spend cash for. That was just the benchmark that I set. But I'll go through a phase like that and then I'll end up not having $20, $30 accounted for. I'm like, okay, I'm gonna stop doing that, go back to the card so I have my record and everything. Yeah, I'd say, 8 times out of 10 I'm using a card. But I guess the biggest difference for me is when I spend cash, it's an intentional cash purchase. It's not just because I've got the cash on hand. It's because I am comfortable enough spending cash on this transaction, whether I get a receipt or not, because I just know what the transaction is going to entail.
Yeah.
It's kind of my new philosophy to it.
You're just drinking too much. That's all.
Pretty much, yeah.
And see, I'm tightwad enough, let me say that if the restaurant that we all as a whole extended family went to and they say, well, we're going to charge you 3% if you use a card, I'm pulling out the cash out of my wallet and paying for it.
We do that too.
Yeah. Where I get in trouble sometimes is I'm not carrying enough cash, for transactions like that. So I kind of got to pay the price. But if it makes sense based upon how much cash I have on hand and they're going to charge me, I'm going to pull out cash.
Yeah.
It just makes sense.
We've had a couple experiences in the last 6 months. The engine replacement for one, that we took that money out and I was for sure to pay cash because they gave a 3% discount for paying cash, which is the inverse of saying there's a 3% card fee because that's what their transaction fee was in using a card. And that's one of the restaurants that we go to has now started charging customers if they bring in a card, use a card, there's the $3 or 3% or 3.5% convenience fee. And the first time we went in there where Kate had the cash, it was card or cash. They would not take your check, even though you only lived a couple miles down the street. And it's like, no, wait a minute. You're going to charge us if we use the card, but you're not going to let us pay check because, I'm sure they've gotten burned plenty of times.
Oh, yeah.
Based on the type of restaurant it is or where they're located, one or the other, or both maybe. But it was one of those that we kind of gotten away from going there as often because of that fee. And I noticed another place earlier this month that charged that fee without making any mention that they were doing it. So, and I've also noticed in a couple of situations where I have paid or I've asked for using cash and gotten that 3% discount. So that's kind of where it's been. Is the 3%, you can expect to pay that much more, that much less,
right,
by using or not using cash. So,
and unfortunately, I've kind of haven't gotten to the habit of it, but I have been more aware of if I'm going somewhere new, and I have this suspicion, just based on how they're handling stuff, to ask, is there a charge for the card or not? And it depends upon what the transaction is. Like again, if I've got enough cash on me. But I think that's something that is becoming more and more common because like there's one mechanic shop that I go to locally that I asked him, are you going to charge for a card? He goes, no, I'm not going to charge for a card because I know that a card will tell me immediately if you have the money or not. So he's willing to pay, he's willing to pay the convenience fee to get a guaranteed answer. But then another shop that does charge for the card usage. So it's, you kind of, I feel like you're to the point now where you almost have to ask, majority of the time, what is your policy? just based on what you have, because it's getting harder to manage that.
Yeah.
All right. So as we kind of wrap up tonight, Bob and Kate, what's the advice that you would give couples on how they can be successful and effective budgeting together based upon your experiences? What's kind of the overall lesson that you think other couples can implement to have success?
Wear protective gear.
On your head or elsewhere?
Yes.
Oh, everywhere. I think finding a way that works for both of you is the most important. Because I think where we struggle most is that Bob doesn't like doing it this way, but I don't like doing it that way. And trying to find something that will work for both of us has been the most difficult. So again, having to stop and say, okay, this wasn't working for me. I mean, I didn't keep track prior to using the app and doing all of this stuff. I just knew how much I spent, and I spent that much. That was it. So keeping track is a big difference for me. But just having that communication piece and being able to come together and start the conversation, even if it's hard to have, keep doing it. It gets easier.
Yeah, absolutely.
It has gotten easier. Some of the communication has not been civil communication on either of our parts. More so mine than hers, but just like she said, she'd spend it and she knew what she spent. Okay, fine. That's the way you do it. I have no problem with it because I trust that you're not going to overspend. Whereas I am the one that, we get to this point in the month and, there's still a month at the end of the money. I'm still spending because I still have those needs. Sometimes they're needs, sometimes they're not. And then it's a evaluation of what those are. And that, as we've talked about before, that's been my hesitancy is in combining all this is not because of anything Kate would do, but my screwing up the whole thing. And so my trust in her and how she handles things has not been an issue. Whereas where we get together and we talk about how we've spent, and it's been more so on my side and she doesn't understand something. And sometimes I don't have a good explanation for it and pride might get in the way. But just being able to talk about it, yell about it, fight, kick, bite, scream, whatever. And she's usually the one that does the kicking, biting, and screaming. I do the screaming because of the kicking and biting. But a few days later, after I've licked my wounds and gotten out of the hospital, just kidding, that I'm able to process, and maybe she's able to process some and say, well, that made some sense, even though he's still crazy. But maybe we can proceed with this and kind of have another conversation that's not as ending in the emergency room like the last 6 have been. No, I'm kidding.
You say that. Some people don't know that you're kidding.
I'm kidding.
I don't know if he's kidding.
We don't have money for that. That's not in our budget.
Right? Emergency rooms cost a lot.
So, yeah.
That's a lot of hospital bills, Bob.
That's right. But no, it's the big piece of that is those times of communication that are very tense. And finally finding a way to end the conversation to say, okay, I'm sleeping on the couch, and being able to come back 2 or 3 days later and have the conversation again once we've been able to process, or maybe not having the conversation in 3 or 4 days because we're still trying to process that. And it just is a sore spot.
Is the couch made for tonight?
No, she's not poking me in the ribs yet. So
we still got an episode to go.
So we're not done.
Yeah. We'll have to check in later on that one.
Is it a comfy couch?
Yes, it was an intention. No, this is your couch.
This is
your couch.
It's
My couch was
He goes and
intended to be
sleeps
slept
on my
on.
couch.
but it's our stuff, but it's her couch. You see how this works? Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, that's how it works.
Yep. Well, her couch is newer. So anyway, enough about the couch.
So what's your advice? And I'll wrap it up.
My advice, I think, would just be the communication piece. Make sure you are communicating, and when you are, that it is effective. Sometimes how you say things don't come out the way that you intend it, and to slow down and think about how the other person is going to hear that, so that you're conveying in the manner that you want it to be received. And that can go to all levels of marriage, not just budgeting.
Yep.
Austin, I think we just need to have an episode where we're not even on.
Laura can just do it all. That
The
was
two of you, yeah. Kate and Laura will have a conversation, and that could be dangerous, but maybe worthwhile.
Do y'all really want that Wives Tell All episode?
Well, I still get to edit it. So.
Well, it's amazing. This show is only 2 minutes long, and it has an intro and an outro.
And it's all Kate.
Austin, that's twice. Twice in one episode.
That's the best part. We'll call it Bob's bashing.
I'm saying that all you leave is Kate in the Wives Tell All one.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah. It's everything she says about Bob and nothing to say about me.
That's right. How's that couch on your end?
We got new living room furniture about 1.5 years ago that you sit down and it makes you take a nap.
Wow.
So
It's
he doesn't mind
definitely
going to the
comfortable.
couch.
Oh, I didn't say I mind going to the couch. I enjoy the couch. The couch doesn't have the kids sprawled sideways on it at 5 o'clock in the morning. So
Yep.
Yep.
That's why I end up there
Yep.
usually.
Yep.
Our 14-month-old can take up his entire side of the bed.
Uh-huh.
It's amazing.
No, it's not. It's very uncomfortable.
Yes, it
I
is.
agree.
Yes, it is.
There's nothing amazing about it.
It's amazing they take up that much space when they're only like 30 pounds.
Amen.
Just not even 20.
Right?
Well, Bob, I tell you what, we definitely go longer whenever they're here.
Just a little bit. You have help digging on me in this case. That's the only
Yes,
difference.
exactly. Yeah, it makes it a little bit easier.
Yeah.
So you said the communication, and I think I'm just going to build upon that with the concept of having enough confidence in your understanding that you can listen to the other person and hear what they're saying. And I think that's kind of a twofold deal, because you can be overly confident in how you do it and not take any ideas, or you can only want their ideas and not be able to make your own decision. And I think a merge of those two is what really creates the best environment, because the person making the budget, in my position, for instance, I want to come to the budget meeting with a solid plan in place that I feel confident in and I believe is going to work. But I also want her to be able to buy into it and provide input to change, because I don't trust myself 100%.
We didn't even talk about how you used to put something in wrong just to see if I would catch it.
Oh.
I don't trust myself 100% with how I did numbers.
Now,
So I want her to
wait a
have
minute. Wait a
input to
minute.
that.
Your magic math?
No, it was just screwed up on purpose.
No, like the very early days, like our first year of marriage, he would put something in wrong and he'd be like, well, do you agree with everything? Is this number right? Is this what it needs to be? Just to see if I was actually paying close enough attention and thinking about all the things, and to give me something to give input.
Mm-hmm.
I think we talked about that too.
Yep, we
Probably.
did. We did.
And
Yeah.
how many black eyes did you have over that?
Not a one. She's a very nice, loving wife, and I can't ask for anyone better.
He doesn't do that anymore.
See what I did there, Bob?
That was a good job.
I'm glad you've learned.
But yeah, anyway, being able to hear and understand what your spouse is bringing to the conversation, to merge with your confidence in how you have presented the plan, I think is the biggest piece that I've learned and been able to implement from us doing stuff that I want to pass on. And I think we can probably all say communication is important. So I mean, that's just a running theme of anything marriage and money related is can you communicate about it?
Yep.
That's kind of what we got tonight. So yeah, this is always entertaining for sure. And you never know where we're going to end up. But what I really like about having these group conversations is the contrast in which you guys talk about compared to what we talk about. And it continues to show that managing your money within your marriage is a very versatile approach. There's not a one size fits all to any of it. There's so many variabilities that go into it. And Bob, you and I have experiences with clients that not one couple is going to manage money the exact same way, going to talk about the exact same way, going to budget the exact same way, which we have proven. But the ability to agree upon the fundamentals of what it takes to have a budget, to manage with your spouse, to communicate with your spouse, and hope that if nothing else, people can gain that from this conversation and really focus on how do we implement those key pieces and then learn with someone else how to really do it with our spouse, because that's obviously where Bob and I really come into the biggest play for folks. So any other final comments, questions, concerns, excitements that you guys have for this evening before we sign off?
I can't think of anything else. Can you?
Just in how we do it differently from the way you and Laura do it. And I mean, the biggest part is finding a place to start, and then the fine tuning that's not always fine. There's some significant changes, and like I said earlier, Kate would prefer that we had one account years ago, where I just was not comfortable with that. And we've operated in ways that we've been able to come closer to a single account, but then just how there's still tweaks in that and getting to the same page. And it takes time. Yeah. Whereas you did it early on in your marriage, where we just kind of kept doing what we've been doing, and I probably just didn't listen like I should have, and was comfortable with the way I did it and didn't want to change it. I know nobody else is ever like that.
Never, not once in my entire life.
In this conversation or listening to this conversation. So I think there's a piece of pride that goes into that having the humility to admit when you're wrong or when you screwed up, or taking the time in that communication to say, we need to take a little bit to process this and come back later and rehash this. Because there are times when questions go from being, I really want to know, to, well, why the hell did you do that? And they're very confrontational. Even if they're not using those exact words, or even if they're not confrontational, they sound like, or they come across as they might be, which takes the conversation in a completely different direction, and everybody's derailed pretty quick. And so I think, again, it's the communication and learning how to communicate and being able to interact in a way that gets you closer to where you want to be, but realizing that it's not an overnight success.
Yes. Amen to that. Very well said. Well, fun times. Glad to have you both on. Excited to hear how the next episode goes. We're going to have a fun conversation. And until next time, we'll see y'all again on The Heart of Money. 5-star review and share the episode with a friend. My goal is to help as many couples as possible in their journey to gaining complete control of their money. Also, I have a free gift that I want to share with you for taking the time to listen to today's show. I have a brand new video training that outlines 5 steps for making a budget that will give you true financial freedom. In this training, I share how you can create a budget in a matter of minutes and make it easy to implement. Who doesn't want that, right? You'll learn what categories you need to cover all the bases each month and how to protect yourself against financial stress. You can access your free gift at freedommoneycoach.com/budget guide. That's freedommoneycoach.com/budget guide.